The
All
content.
right. And we're live. We're live. Welcome to another episode of the Pit Live Clean and Fight Dirty Show. Today, we are going to be discussing what is Kajukenbo MMA, the Pit Method. I know there was an awkward pause in the beginning of that, and I'm sorry for that. And we haven't been live for a while. So we're back to answer your questions about Kajukenbo MMA. What is it? What is this whole pit method? What's going on? So who best to ask this than the founder of the pit method, the man himself, UFC coach John Hackleman. Thanks for joining us,
Hey, thanks,
John.
Trent. Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks for being here, man. We
yeah.
got we got the pit method, right? Kajukenbo MMA. It's put out for a lot of reasons, and I think I think a lot of people have misused MMA. Like they think MMA is a mixture of martial arts, and they think Kajukenbo, was started off a mixture of martial arts. So MMA was or Kajukenbo was like the first real MMA, you know, and that didn't sit well with me. And my roots are MMA. Everyone knows that. I mean, my roots are Kajukenbo. Everyone knows that. And I have done a lot of MMA training and teaching and coaching, etc. So I kind of know the two, and I know the differences, and I know the similarities. And Kaju Kempo was made and developed, and its goal was street for the street. It wasn't made with a bunch down Palama settlement with the Emperados and all the other guys, and they're saying, hey, let's start a system so we can do a sport in a cage with a lot of rules and a referee, and we're going to do this so we can win world titles and be on TV, pay-per-view, etc. That's not how it started. It started with five guys, you know around five guys that had different uh, skill sets of martial arts, and they're from Hawaii, and they wanted to get together to create the best fighting system for the street that ever was developed. And that's what they did for the most part. That's what they did for the street. So they never thought, with all the eye gouging and smashing and chops to the throat and the groin and weaponry and weapon defense. It was not made for a cage or a sport. It was made for the street. And when MMA came out, everybody said, "Oh yeah, Kajukenbo is the first, real MMA." Kajukenbo is not. But with that said, they're very similar in their content, not in their goal, not in their purpose, but in their content. So with Kajukenbo, you want to go home to your family. You want to be safe in the street. You want to be able to defend yourself and your family. MMA, you're not thinking of defending your family. You're thinking of putting food on your family's table. You're thinking of getting a lot of money. You're thinking of winning UFC titles. That's MMA. Big difference with Kajukenbo. Here's the similarity: the techniques and the training is very similar. The groundwork, the standing, the strikes, the strikes to the ground back up. I mean, all those techniques are, in Kajukenbo, they're much more similar to MMA than any other martial art that was made way back, before say 1950. A lot of karate styles and grappling styles are made, but very, very few of them were combined the way Kajukenbo was. So with Kajukenbo guys who have trained Kajukenbo, real old school Kajukenbo, you guys have done the takedowns and the ground and pound and the hammer blows and the strikes and the knockouts. You've done all that. Now you just take out some eye gouging. You take out some brutal stomping on the face when the guy's on the ground. Take some of that out. Leave most of it in. And now MMA and Kajukenbo aren't that different. Okay, they're not that different in their content. So you can take a Kajukenbo guy and train him for MMA a lot easier than you can any other martial art, any other traditional martial art. Kajukenbo is the most that's similar to MMA. So teaching them, I found it much easier than I did some of the other combat sports because this was a little more like we used to train back in the day. So there's so many similarities and a couple of differences, but they're not the same. You know what I mean? I mean, they're not the same at all. They're different because their goal is different. You know what I mean? You know what I mean, there's a lot of things you could compare that to. Like if you're sparring with someone just trying to score a point, or you're beating the shit out of someone and trying to put them in the hospital, the punches are the same. You're trying to score the same, but the goal is so much different. You can't compare the two. It's night and day. Okay. But then to train to knock the guy out, yeah, you're right on the right page when you're doing the sparring. Same with Kajukenbo. So it's not that far of a leap from for a Kajukenbo guy to become an MMA sport fighter. So I think they're very similar in so many ways, but but they're not the same, right? You have to train, with it with the intent of winning a title in MMA. You train with the intent of stopping the threat, the life or death threat in Kajukenbo. So it's a weird juggling act to train both, but it's very, very doable. And that's where we come up with Kajukenbo MMA because they are so similar in so many ways. But you have to get over the differences first, and that's where I come in because I've done both for years. I've been teaching, the old Kajukenbo Hawaiian Kempo system, since 1985. I've been training the MMA guys since like 91 or 92, and I've been doing both. I've been juggling both. 97% of my students train Hawaiian Kempo, Kajukenbo, and then 3% train MMA. But that 3% for some reason, got kind of popular, like Chuck and Glover, Tim Kennedy, Steven Seiler, Ramsey, Court McGee. We got guys, Cruz Gomez. There's been a lot of fighters passing through these doors that have fought in PFL, Bellator, UFC, Pride. So, and I've also had guys get their black belt, right? In our fighting art, right? Hawaiian Kempo, which is synonymous or very similar to Kajukenbo, and I have a lot of black belts that have used that in the real life. I've had cops and other guys that have had to defend themselves. So I've done both, and that's where I decided to, a lot of Kajukenbo guys want to do MMA, and I want to make it easier for them to teach their people MMA if they want to have an MMA class. It's like if I did nunchucks, but you had a Kajukenbo school, but you want to have an upgrade class so the kids can do nunchucks. I'll teach them nunchucks if I know them. But I don't know nunchucks, but I do know MMA.
So, what do you have to say? So, some people fear the idea that their market will be saturated with too many MMA people out there. That MMA is this new craze, and that everyone's just trying to jump on the bandwagon of MMA in
like
any way
30 years. MMA's been around for like 30 freaking years. it's not a new craze. It's by far a new craze. I mean, it's like it is. It's been around, like I said, early '90s. So I don't know what oversaturating means. I mean, it means we need more instructors. There's more interest. Why is that a bad thing? That should be a good thing. Like, when people come to my town and go, "Oh, they want to learn Hawaiian Kempo," I don't go, "Oh, that's a problem." The community is oversaturated with people that want to learn what I'm teaching. Oh, that's terrible. No, that's not a bad thing, guys. If you think it's going to get oversaturated with MMA, jump on the bandwagon, start learning how to teach MMA, and start teaching MMA and adding it to your curriculum.
And so, what do you have to say to people that feel that people might end up jumping in and doing MMA incorrectly and getting people hurt because they're not trained properly to teach MMA? And they feel that these people shouldn't be running MMA programs and they should put in the hard work of 8 to 10 years or 20 years of running a school before they decide to turn around and start teaching MMA. What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of confusing. Like, what? I mean, like, there's no state board where you have to pass a bunch of tests and do a bunch of prerequisites to become a registered nurse, a medical doctor, a lawyer, an architect. You don't need that for martial arts. So if that was there, I would probably be one of the guys that would probably be grandfathered in for that. But with that said, it's not in. And how do you do that is um, it's you teach the highest quality stuff, and when you're watching that your students and you're teaching, just like you teaching Kajukenbo. If you're teaching Kajukenbo and some guy jumps him in the street, what if he doesn't know when to back off with the hammer blows to the face? What if he doesn't know when to not slam him on the concrete? I mean, how do you do that with Kajukenbo? It's actually MMA is a lot safer to teach than Kajukenbo is, because Kajukenbo, your intent is to severely physically harm someone, possibly kill them. In MMA, you're trying to score more points and win a title. So, I mean, if you're going to do that for the MMA side, you definitely have to make sure that, oh, you don't overteach your Kajukenbo guys, because they might hurt someone too much. So it's not going to be self-defense. It will be assault. So I mean, that's a weird question with MMA, you know what I mean? Because there's a referee there, and there's in a fight, there's a referee there, there's judges there. But if you're
Well,
if you're
I,
if you're what?
I think it's not so much about about them hurting someone. It's about a coach who isn't trained properly and their student gets hurt trying to do MMA. That's what
Yeah.
these people have complained about. Like, what if someone goes out there, claims to be an MMA coach with no real substantial background? This is what these people fear is
Yeah.
someone who jumps in and says, "Hey, I'm going to be an MMA coach now." Maybe they taught point karate the whole time. I don't know. Maybe they didn't get a black belt. Maybe they only got a colored belt in some system, and they switched and decided to say they want to teach MMA. They take on students to put them in the cage, and the students get in the cage and get hurt, and
Yeah.
they argue that that shouldn't have never happened because that person should have never been coaching MMA.
Yeah. Well, what if the guy was doing point fighting and he got hurt doing that? What if the guy was doing Kajukenbo and he got hurt doing that? I mean, there's no state board to oversee these things. So you just have to have the highest quality guys teaching it. And I think everybody knows my reputation when it comes to MMA. So get high quality guys in there teaching the MMA, and then I'm going to be watching out for the guys I teach. And if I don't think they're up to par, uh, and performing what they're supposed to perform, then that makes me bad, right? But I think I have a good enough reputation where that won't be a question if I'm teaching the class. So I don't know. I would that question would have to be answered by someone with maybe a little less experience than I have.
All right.
Because
Fair.
I don't think it would happen with someone that trained with me.
There you go.
Bing.
Bing. We said it. Jinx. so, before we wrap things up, what would you say is going to be the big? And we're talking about Kajukenbo MMA, the Pit method, and we are specifically talking about the Kajukenbo community. And for those of you who don't know what that is, check out the What is Kajukenbo podcast on my show. You can Google it and it'll come up and you can learn a little more about that. Me and John had a long talk about that. But what do you think is the biggest hurdle for a Kajukenbo guy that they're going to have to get over coming in to start doing MMA? As let's go from a teaching perspective, not so much the fighting perspective, but from a teaching perspective. You're a Kajukenbo guy teaching Kajukenbo techniques, and you know what they are. All that self-defense you talked about with the hammer blows. Maybe you got guys competing in most of them in open karate tournaments, doing the point sparring and some continuous here and there. Some of them bang, some of them don't. What do you think is going to be the biggest hurdle for this instructor who wants to get into MMA?
Opening his mind to learn new ways of teaching, because when you're teaching MMA, you're teaching people how to be better athletes. You know, they're martial artists first, but they're athletes. They're not training to defend their family's life in a life or death situation. It's a whole different, it's a whole different goal that you're trying to teach these people, and it's hard to turn that on and off. And I've been, like I said, I've been doing it since 1985. Actually, a little sooner than that, but earlier than that. But I've been doing that constantly and at the highest level since 1985, and I've been teaching both. So, one guy, I'm going to teach him, get him on the ground, pound his head, gouge his eye, and the other guys, they're like, get him on the ground and pound, put him in a choke or whatever. And that's, it's sometimes you get kind of confused on the goal. But since training the techniques is so similar and conditioning is such a big part of both, because you got to be in top shape in the street, you got to be in top shape in the cage, so many things are so similar. I try to think of those more, and I don't focus on the differences as much, and they kind of go away when you're in one. You kind of get in a rhythm. I've never been teaching MMA and thinking, oh, I did too much eye poking. I get in that rhythm and I start teaching like they're going to win a UFC title. And when I'm teaching my Kajukenbo guys, I'm teaching them to stop the threat no matter what. And I never think of, okay, they're in a cage and they're trying to win a title, because you just have to be able to compartmentalize both. And you have to know that you're a Kajukenbo guy in heart, but you want to teach MMA guys so they can win world titles here and there, and you can make their life a lot better. I think a lot of my fighters' life is a lot better because of our training together and what I've taught them and the way I've trained them and what they've accomplished in life and in the cage. And you can change lives that way, just like you can the other way. The other way is somebody jumped their family member and they were able to save their life because of our training. So it's such a win-win now. The Kajukenbo MMA is like you can get the best of both worlds and teach both in your gym, because some guys want to compete, most guys don't. So a lot of Kajukenbo schools, the most guys that come in don't want to fight in a cage. They don't want to do that. So they kind of have a weird combination of students. Whereas if you do Kajukenbo as your main focus, and then have a MMA team on the side, man, it's the best of both worlds. and you're changing all kind of lives. And then your Kajukenbo guys want to go watch the MMA guys fight. Then they all of a sudden they got a whole new group of that. They got a whole new group of fans right there. In your gym, and they're the like really close fans because they consider the gym an ohana, right? Bing.
All right. Well, we are on our wrap up, and since this is live, we are taking questions. So if you have any questions about anything, we'll answer them in the next 5 minutes or so. So be quick on your questions. Our first question comes from Zen Baron. Co-workers tried to pick a fight with me, and I started getting nervous. What should I do to get rid of most of my fear?
You know what you have to do? You have to first of all you have to come up with a plan. You have to come up with a boundary. And whatever that boundary is, it could be laying a hand on you, it could be saying something threatening, it could be in your face or in your space. Make a boundary. And if he crosses that boundary, then you respond immediately and know that you're in the right. And know you're in the right, and there's nothing else you can do. You've made a boundary. Like, I'm not gonna hit this guy because he said I'm a dipshit. I'm gonna hit him if I feel physically threatened by him. And if you do, then you need to hit him and realize that you're in the right. You're fighting for right. And if it's over some argument or something like that, then realize, just ignore the guy. You don't want to fight unless you feel your life is in danger. And if you have that set in your mind, then you're going to go forward with more. I think with less thoughts. Less confusion or less hesitancy. If you know you're right and you're fighting for right, then boom, that should take care of a lot of it. And know you've trained well enough. If you haven't trained well enough, stay the fuck away and just go tell them, okay, whatever, I don't want to fight, I'm going to call the cops. That's what you should do if you haven't trained. But if you have, then tell him, leave me the fuck alone, bro. I don't want to talk to you anymore. And if he threatens you physically, if you feel threatened, respond, bro. Respond until the threat is over. But if you don't think you can do that, then just stay the fuck away from him and make idle threats like you're gonna tell the boss.
So, all right. So there's your answer, Zen. And we're gonna get back to Zen because Zen has a lot of comments. So, Karate Guy says, "Hi, Pitmaster. Thanks, and Angelo. Hello. Thanks for sharing. No problem. Welcome back." Zen says, "I can't help but getting nervous. I have a hard time looking at people sometimes who can be a threat because of my Asperger's." And what I want to say, Zen, on top of everything that John just said, we've talked about your Asperger's with you before, and we've talked about my background in psychology for that. What I can say is what John is saying is on point. It does your response doesn't have to be physical, right? There was parts of what John just said. You can tell your boss, you can threaten him to tell your boss, you're going to tell your boss about what's happening because this is a workplace. Now that shit shouldn't be happening. You're trying to do a job, and that's counterproductive to the job that you're trying to get done. And at the same time, if you trained hard enough, if you feel confident enough in your training, then you can confront this person if it goes down that route. But like you said, if you're not training properly and you don't feel comfortable with that, that's going to come back to you about your training. And the more you train, the more you confront, the more you spar, the more you go through these exercises, the less scary and this will seem. You said you're always nervous, and I'm just going to tell you that might not ever go away. Some people are always nervous, but that doesn't mean that you're not. That's fight or flight, man. That's fight or flight. In psychology, we talk about it. Talked about it in biology. You're either going to fight or you're going to run. But everybody goes through this. You were just talking about, we went on a long spiel about Kajukenbo MMA. I can't think of one fighter that walks into that cage. Oh yeah, this is like a walk in the park for me. Every single fighter is a little bit nervous and should be a little bit nervous, because if you're too relaxed, you're underestimating your opponent. So don't think that just because you train a lot, suddenly the nerves are just going to go away. The nerves are always going to be there. You're going to have to use those nerves in your favor. Next comment comes from Weston Simonis. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And finally, Karate Guy says, just imagine he wants to take your lunch money. Just kidding. Oh, well, you should. Either way. All right. That's it. Those are all our comments. If you want to train, do you want to train? Do you need a system to train in? Are you wondering, where can I go? I live in the middle of nowhere. I don't have an MMA gym. There is no Kajukenbo MMA where I live. I only have laundromat karate, as John likes to call it. Well, that's okay. That's not a big deal. You can go to the pit.tv. John Hackelman is there. This is an interactive course, guys. So it's not just like you watch some videos like you do on YouTube. These are full instructionals and followed by live chats, live criticism, live feedback. He will be there. And you can even join in on classes sometimes. Over in Oriole Grande, he actually sets up a camera and you'll feel like you're right there training with a giant class. And they're huge classes. You can see on our YouTube videos how many people show up to these classes. There's huge classes, and you can train there with the people, legends like Chuck Liddell, Glover Dixon. I'll keep dropping names, right? You can train at the pit, at the pit.tv. All right. Right now, we're doing I'm about to mix this up. I almost said Black Market Special, which would sound really bad, but it's a Black Friday special because we're coming around to the holidays. We are not doing a Black Market Special. Well, not yet, anyways. We'll consider in the future. A Black Friday special, under $20, under $20 right now. No promo code necessary. Just jump on in at thepit.tv.
I spent more than that on my coffee today.
Jeez, what kind of coffee are you drinking? Either way.
3 people. There's 3 people.
Okay.
But still, it's still a lot of money.
It is.
It's the same amount of money.
Yeah. Could have learned how to beat someone up. Luckily, you're the coach. All right. Catch you all next time. We're doing these lives again. So we'll see you next week. Peace.